Hey guys, it's Thorn and Oliver who insisted on being in my arms this morning, even though it's really inconvenient. I started to record and he just climbed on me and knocked the microphone over and was just not having no for an answer because Oliver does not care. So, right? No. So I wanted to talk a little bit in response to the last video that I posted where I talked a little bit about productivity and kind of he doesn't even need me to hold him. He's just on me. My own kind of strategies for accomplishing as much as I do, and just generally, I didn't mean that necessarily as like an instructional video on how to be productive, which I think is how some people took it. I'm actually kind of critical of this whole idea of productivity as like a movement, because I think it kind of is fueled by this sort of capitalistic drive we have to make money on everything that we do, and this is really inconvenient what's happening right now. Are you okay? Huh? What are you doing? Anyway, I'm trying to move this lapel mic so that Oliver isn't totally ruining the sound quality here. Apologies. Anyway, where are we going? I was surprised at some of the feedback that I got on that video. Not so much in comments, although there were a few. But I got a couple of emails and a couple of interactions on Facebook, where I think people kind of took the video in a different direction. And people were actually critical of my mentioning my relationship with alcohol and also my depression, which, you know, I guess I really shouldn't be surprised when stuff like that happens, but, you know, nonetheless, I was surprised. I saw things about how, like, basically I was being negative by talking about those things. I was giving people bad advice because, like, my own life was messed up, and, you know, I just really strange stuff about how, like, I'm clearly unhappy because I'm having to, like, consciously not drink and, you know, dealing with depression and whatever. And I just thought that was, frankly, like, those are really, like, kind of antiquated and bizarre ways to think about people and alcohol, and especially depression. I guess, I don't know, I guess these things are still, people are still kind of coming to grips with them, but I live in a world where it's pretty safe to talk about those things openly, and I guess I just naively forget that that isn't the case in other places. So all of this got me thinking, this is just getting more difficult with this cat here. Hi, I know. Can we maybe, thank you. Sorry. I can't even edit any of this out, right? This got me thinking about this tendency, I think, in pagan and witch and new age culture, about positivity, and how there is this emphasis on not even just being positive, but on never being negative, and in turn never being critical. And I think that this is one of the reasons why so many of us are so bad at discernment, or don't know how to handle criticism and critique. And I don't mean like personal criticism or critique to us, but I mean, like, have you noticed nobody ever writes a bad book review, right? Like when you're hanging out on you know, like witch and new age blog sites, or even here on YouTube or on Instagram, like when people post about books, they only ever say good things. And I think part of that is because, and I experienced this too, like I really try to avoid saying critical things, particularly about the media that other people put out, because frankly, like, as a writer, as somebody who has a product to sell, it's often not in the best interest of your brand to be negative about other things. But I really want to kind of fine tune that a little bit and redefine what we mean by negativity, because I believe that there are ways to be critical about things while being positive. Okay, I think those things are valuable and useful, and that we even need them. So just generally going back to my video, I'm about to remove Oliver from the table because he's just like knocking stuff off. We're having a rough morning. I don't understand weekends. No. Just the idea that people would think that I was being negative or somehow like contributing bad advice or encouraging people to drink or whatever by openly talking about issues that I've had is like, I don't even know where to begin. That's so much of a problem. And I just like talking about things like that openly is positive. When people feel like they don't have the space to talk about the things that they struggle with, particularly things that are outside of their control, right? Like people can't choose to just not be depressed or to not struggle with other kinds of mental illness, like, or to, they can't just choose not to be poor, okay? Or like, so when people can't talk about those things openly and talk about how they go through life while also dealing with those things, that's where like things get worse when that happens. So if I'd made a cute, really well edited video where I gave you, 4 tips for how to live a more productive witchy life or whatever, like that would be disingenuous. It wouldn't be honest. Like nobody's life is like that. Most of the people who I know who call themselves life coaches or they're, productivity bloggers or whatever, like they don't have other jobs. They don't have other stuff they have to deal with. I was complaining on Twitter this morning, kind of in a lighthearted way, that all of the promotional tweets that have been coming across my feed lately about like building a better morning routine and being a better work or whatever, like none of this advice applies to people who have like working class and lower middle class jobs, right? Like remember when the Miracle Morning was really popular last year or the year before, and like the sole principle, like the kind of the crux of the Miracle Morning was, oh, just get up at 5. And my response was, what about those of us who already get up at 5 to work? Like, are we supposed to get up at 4 or 3? Like, what sense does that make? So I think a lot of the people out there talking about productivity, it's just not very realistic. Like, if you can come up with some way for me to survive while working multiple jobs and like dealing with mental health stuff and dealing with family stuff and dealing like whatever, like then I'll be interested. But anyway, like me being open about alcohol and depression and other issues in my life. I've talked about self-injury before, okay? Like I've made a couple of mental health videos. When I'm being open and honest about those things, that's now he's knocking over the offering bowl. I need you to know right now. He's so cute. He's lucky he's cute. But when I'm talking about those things, that's not me being negative. That's not me bringing other people down. So I just thought those responses were really strange, and I wanted to address those. So kind of moving on, I've started a series on Instagram where I post kind of mini reviews of books. And one of the reasons I wanted to do that was because there are a lot of books out there right now. Like when you go through like hashtags like, what is that hashtag? It's like baby witch books, or it's some kind of like beginner witch book hashtag that's really popular that escapes me right now. When you scroll through stuff like that, or when you're looking on YouTube for video reviews, everybody is reviewing the same like 3 or 4 books. Okay, they're reviewing, and here I am, like I'm falling into this thing that I'm talking about by like not listing the books directly, okay, because I still feel weird about it. But they're reviewing the same books, and a lot of those books are really bad, guys. They just are, and they're bad because they, first of all, several of them are reprints of old books that have been out, in some cases for decades, and they were poorly received when they came out the first time. Like the reason they're out again is because, I don't know, like the rights were cheap, the original publisher went under, or what? Like many of them are very poorly edited. I think that I kind of blame this on declining literacy rates, honestly. Like it's not language shifting, it's actually people just not caring about how language is assembled on paper. Like the number of typos in some of these books, I don't know, like, and then the material itself, it's rehashed from writers with much better books that have been out for years. And like, those are the books that we should be recommending, okay? But nobody talks about those. Nobody talks about that, okay? All we see are the really, really positive reviews, and where people are critical. And now I need you to know, he's throwing up on the table. Are you okay? What is happening this morning? I know, it's kind of rough. Where people are saying critical things, they're being told that they're negative. Well, like, if you don't like a book, just don't read it. Well, no, it's not about just not reading something that you don't like. Like, we should be reading everything. But when you see issues with what you read, you should say something about it. And there's a difference between saying, I don't like this book, it's stupid, and the author's got a stupid face and they suck, right? Like, that's not a useful criticism. Like, that's negative, okay? But a critique like, well, actually this particular chapter is just plagiarized from another book, okay? Like, that's a useful piece of information that somebody spending their money should know, okay? Well, this particular book puts across a history that was dismantled decades ago, okay, and is putting it forward like it's fact, okay? That's a useful critique, okay? Saying that this book is just a more expensive version of this earlier book that's actually better edited and better written, like, that's a useful piece of feedback. You can be critical of a book, you can be critical of a YouTube channel, you can be critical of, I don't know, like, people are brands now, right? Like, you can be critical of somebody's brand without resorting to things like name calling, okay? So that's not what I'm advocating. But I think because there are a million people in the world, in our like witch kind of new age pagan world right now, and everybody has a brand, everybody is an expert, and everybody is trying to sell you something, it's worth being critical about their message, their product, etc., how they compare to other people. And we don't really do that because I don't know, I think we've been taught that by being critical, by displaying discernment, we're somehow being negative. And negativity is always bad in New Age pagan land. And frankly, guys, like, when we fail to be critical, that's one of the reasons why we have so many predators in our community. That's where predators kind of can get their foothold, because they know that people aren't going to say anything, right? And I'm not talking necessarily about like sexual predators. We certainly have those, okay? But like financial predators, okay? People like charlatans, right, is the word for it. Like, there are people out there who are 100% out for your money, who are not witches, who are using those hashtags and using that aesthetic because they know it will work to get your money. And I don't think that that's inherently immoral. Like, I don't necessarily have a whole lot of thought about that. We do live in a capitalistic system, and a lot of people really struggle to get by. And I think, like, it's not necessarily like a Jean Valjean stealing bread to feed his children kind of thing, but like, I don't know. I hesitate to be overly critical of people trying to make money in a system that literally kills you when you can't make it. But as a consumer, we are all consumers. I think that it is smart for us to be open about that environment and kind of what's going on around us. So I started that Instagram review series because I wanted to be honest in how I'm talking about things. I'm choosing a book a week, and I'm choosing a mix of things, okay? Like, I'm never going to post a book that is just like completely horrible and has no merit whatsoever, because that's just a waste of time. Like, I'm not here to just like tear people down wantonly. But you can love a book and you can think that it has a lot to say, and you can love a YouTuber and think that they have a lot to say, and you can love a social media witch and think that they have a lot to say, and they've contributed so much, but you can still be critical about their content. Like, that's fair. Some of the best interactions that I've had here on YouTube have been with people who disagree with me. I think that's great. The whole reason I got on YouTube wasn't to sell anything. I've been here for almost 10 years, before I was a writer, before any of that stuff. And I got here because I wanted to talk to other smart people about stuff that I cared about, because it's real hard to do that in real life sometimes for people. And I'd like to see that kind of maintained in this community. And as the internet is globalized and we're all on the same platforms and whatever, like, I'd like to see that on other platforms as well. I don't know. Anyway, Oliver is like freaking out here. He has to sit on me. So I'm gonna say bye-bye. I'll talk to you guys later, okay?